You never think the person who once clung to you in bed, whispered, "I can't live without you," in the dark, would one day stare you down and tell you to vanish. But that's exactly what happened to me. Her name was Lauren, and at one point, I could truly believe she was my forever. We weren't perfect, sure. We had our ups and downs like every couple, but there was always love, or at least I thought there was. The truth is, sometimes love doesn't end in fire or screaming. Sometimes it just dies in small, quiet moments where one person stops showing up. The final days of our marriage didn't explode. They eroded. It started with subtle shifts. I come home from work, exhausted, hopeful for a hug, a smile, a "how was your day?" But she'd barely glance up from her phone. Dinner used to be something we cooked together, something that filled the house with laughter and wine and music. Lately, it was silence. She'd eat early without me, or not at all. And when we did sit together, conversation had become surface level, dry, like we were co-workers forced to share a table. Still, I tried. I brought home her favorite pastries from that little cafe on Fifth, took her car in for servicing without her asking, left sticky notes on her mirror with words like, "You're beautiful," and "We'll be okay." She'd throw them away. No thank you. No smile. Just blank eyes and cold air. At night, she began sleeping with her back to me. Not just turned away, but distant, like even the thought of touching me annoyed her. I'd reach over just to feel her skin, even if for a second, and she'd flinch, pull the blanket tighter. There was no cheating, no dramatic betrayal, just this invisible wall she kept building one brick at a time. And I was on the outside, watching her walk further and further away, inside our own home. I brought it up gently one evening. She was scrolling through her laptop on the couch. I sat beside her, quietly, and said, "Hey, are we okay?" She didn't even look at me, just sighed and said, "I'm tired, Mark. I don't want to talk about this again." "But we never talk," I replied. "You don't even look at me anymore." She closed the laptop, finally met my eyes, and that's when I realized she was already gone. "I feel suffocated," she said. "It's always the same thing. You're too emotional, always needing something. I just want space. Can you give me that?" "I'm not asking for much," I said. "I'm just asking to not feel like a stranger in my own marriage." That's when she stood up, walked to the kitchen, and mumbled under her breath, "God, I wish you'd just disappear from my life." I froze. She didn't scream it, didn't throw anything, just said it with calm, cutting cruelty, like someone confirming a business cancellation. I sat there, hands numb, staring at the hallway where she vanished. The woman I had loved for 7 years had just told me, to my face, to disappear. Like I was a burden, like I was nothing. And you know what's wild? I didn't say a word. I didn't argue, didn't break down. I just stood up, walked to the bedroom, opened my closet, and started packing. There was no dramatic music, no rain pounding on windows, just quiet drawers opening, hangers sliding off the rod. A man collecting pieces of himself from a life he thought would last. I packed enough to fit into 2 duffel bags. I left the rest, not out of kindness, but because I didn't want to take anything that reminded me of what we had become. I grabbed my wallet, my phone, and my keys. I walked out the front door at 1:14 a.m. She never came after me. No message, no call, no voice behind me saying wait. She had told me to disappear. And for the first time in months, I listened. I drove for hours. No destination. Just needed the road. I stopped at a rest station at dawn, slept in the car for 2 hours, then headed to my brother's place 2 states away. I told him I needed a few days. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a spare key and let me crash on the couch. I spent the next week like a ghost, walking around unfamiliar streets, drinking cheap coffee, staring out at the sky, and wondering how someone could go from kissing you goodnight to treating you like dead weight. Lauren didn't contact me. Not once. And that told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't expected me to actually leave. She probably assumed I'd go sleep on a friend's couch, then come back a few days later with my tail between my legs, apologizing, begging, hoping to patch things up. But I didn't. I didn't come back. I didn't text her. I didn't even check her social media. I vanished. Not to hurt her. Not out of revenge. But because when someone tells you, with full clarity and no remorse, to disappear from their life, you owe it to yourself to finally take them at their word. I rented a room in a shared apartment in a quiet part of town, started freelancing, worked small gigs, slowly rebuilt my life from the ground up. I changed my number, cut ties with mutual friends, moved in silence. No drama, no explanations. I became a man with no past, and that's what saved me. Meanwhile, I heard whispers through cousins, through old college friends. Lauren told people I had abandoned her, that I just walked out one night. She painted me as the quitter, the one who gave up. Let her. I wasn't interested in defending myself. I had spent too long trying to explain myself to someone who no longer cared to listen. What mattered wasn't what she said. What mattered was this. I gave her everything I had, and when she told me to leave, I did. And that silence? That was the beginning of my peace. Disappearing wasn't the hard part. Staying gone, that took something deeper. After I walked out of Lauren's life, I didn't just change cities. I changed everything. I moved to Austin, didn't tell a soul, rented a small studio above a mechanic shop with paper-thin walls and a fridge that barely kept milk cold. It was nothing glamorous, not even close. But it was mine. It was quiet. And more than anything, it was far away from the version of me that used to beg for scraps of affection. The first few months were rough. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. I worked random jobs, part-time deliveries, freelance web gigs, manual labor here and there. Anything to stay afloat. I ate cheap. I wore the same 3 shirts on rotation. I slept on a mattress on the floor. But despite all that, I wasn't miserable. For the first time in years, I had peace. No cold shoulders. No emotional landmines in my own home. No walking on eggshells, trying to keep someone interested in me. The silence in that studio didn't hurt. It healed. I woke up one morning, looked in the cracked bathroom mirror, and didn't recognize myself. My face was tired, scruffy, pale. I looked like a man who had been surviving, not living. That was the turning point. So I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't just disappear. I'd evolve. I joined a cheap gym around the corner. Nothing fancy, just weights, sweat, and discipline. I went every day, even when I didn't feel like it. Especially then, I started running. Early in the morning when the streets were still empty and the world hadn't woken up to judge me yet. And the more I moved my body, the more my mind began to move too. I started reading again. Books on psychology, discipline, business, and self-worth. I listened to podcasts during late-night shifts. I cut out alcohol, got a proper bed, invested in therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I didn't want to carry unhealed wounds into my next chapter. Within a year, I had built a modest life. I landed a stable remote job doing UX design. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. I had enough to finally furnish my apartment. Bought a used car, got decent clothes, started walking with my head a little higher. People noticed. Strangers smiled at me. Women glanced twice. But I wasn't chasing anyone. Not yet. My focus was razor sharp on becoming the kind of man who doesn't ask for love, but commands respect. Not through arrogance, through presence, through peace. And all this time, I never reached out to Lauren. Not once. No texts. No calls. No lurking on social media. She had told me to disappear, and I had honored her wish. What she didn't realize was that the man she'd told to vanish wasn't sulking somewhere. He was rising. A few mutual acquaintances tried to connect me back into the old social circles, birthdays, group chats. Hey, I ran into Lauren the other day. I declined every time. I wasn't interested in updates. I didn't care what she was posting. I wasn't waiting for her to change. She had made her choice. And in her mind, I'm sure she pictured me as a lost cause, the quiet man who left in silence, probably ashamed, probably stuck, maybe even crawling back to family or hiding behind a bottle. But the truth was, I was sharpening every day. By the end of the second year, I had started a side hustle, a small brand helping local businesses with branding and web presence. Word got around. Referrals grew. I reinvested every dollar. By the third year, I was turning a consistent profit. No debt, no noise, just progress. Physically, I had changed too. I was down 30 pounds, leaner, stronger. My skin was clearer. My posture had improved. I didn't walk with my head down anymore. I didn't wait to be invited. I created space where I went. And emotionally, I was steady. No outbursts. No desperation. Just quiet control. One night, I sat in my new apartment, a two-bedroom in a clean, modern building with big windows and a view of the skyline. I was sipping tea. No TV, just the hum of the city. And I realized it had been 5 years. 5 full years since I had last looked at Lauren. 5 years since she'd told me, without hesitation, to just disappear from my life. She probably assumed I would come back eventually, that I'd knock on her door, ask for another chance, say, "I still love you." Maybe she even told herself a story where she was the victim, where I abandoned her without explanation. Let her, because the man I had become didn't need to rewrite the past. He just needed to outgrow it. I didn't hate her. In fact, I silently thanked her. Because that rejection, that cold dismissal, it forced me to meet myself, to rebuild, to become someone better than I ever thought possible. And that's when it happened. The moment I didn't expect. The collision of past and present. It was a Friday night. A friend from my team was getting married. Small ceremony, intimate, and they had asked me to be part of the design setup. I almost declined, but something in me said go. So I went. It was in a rustic little event hall on the edge of town. String lights, live music, a simple outdoor garden where the reception was set. And then, as I stepped inside, adjusting my cufflinks, scanning the crowd, I saw her. Lauren, standing by the open bar. Same eyes, same posture, but older. Not in a bad way, just softened, like someone who had walked through a few storms herself. She hadn't seen me yet, but I froze. For a second, my breath caught in my throat. 5 years. Then she turned, and our eyes met. And in that moment, I swear, I watched her body go stiff. Her drink tilted slightly in her hand. Her jaw opened barely. Her lips trembled, and she sat down. Not walked, not turned away. She sat, as if the sight of me had taken the ground from under her. That's where this chapter ends. The man she told to disappear was standing in front of her, tall, composed, and no longer hers. What she never saw coming was that the man she pushed away wasn't gone. He had just become someone she could no longer reach. 5 years is a long time. It's long enough to heal, long enough to evolve, long enough for a man to stop looking over his shoulder, and long enough for a woman to assume the past will never catch up to her. But the past has a strange way of appearing exactly when we least expect it. And that day, it walked into the room wearing a navy suit, polished shoes, and a confidence she had never seen in me before. It was a wedding. My business partner's younger sister was getting married. She'd invited us both, said it would mean a lot if we came. I almost didn't go. I'm not the suit and dance floor type anymore. But my partner insisted. Come on, man. We've earned some celebration. Just show up, have a drink, eat the cake, leave after the first dance. Simple. I agreed. The reception was held at a vineyard just outside the city. Open air, live string quartet, golden hour sunlight leaking through tall trees. The kind of place designed for Instagram and memories. I arrived just before the ceremony began, found my seat near the middle row, and quietly blended in. I nodded politely at people I didn't know, smiled when it felt appropriate, and kept my hands folded calmly in my lap. Then, during cocktail hour, as I stood by the patio railing, sipping sparkling water, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. You ever feel someone's presence before you see them? That's what it was like. I turned slightly, and there she was. Lauren, hair tied back in a neat braid, thin black dress, simple pearl earrings. She was walking toward the drink table with slow, casual steps. I don't know why she was there. Maybe a friend of the bride. Maybe a plus one. Fate doesn't send an RSVP. She hadn't seen me yet, but I saw her. And for a few seconds, I simply watched. Not out of bitterness. Not even out of curiosity. I was just still. She looked older. Not in a bad way. Just worn. The kind of look you get when life doesn't go the way you imagined, but you're too proud to admit it. I turned back toward the vineyard, ready to let her pass behind me without a word. But something stopped her. Maybe it was my posture. Maybe it was the voice of someone nearby, saying my name. Or maybe it was the eerie familiarity of the back of my head after all those nights of sleeping back to back. She paused, then said my name, hesitantly. Mark? I turned around slowly. She stared. For a moment, Her brain tried to deny it. Her eyes flicked across my face, scanning the angles, the beard, the fit of my jacket, the change in how I stood. Then I watched it happen, that exact second of recognition. Her lips parted, her breath caught, and her knees actually gave out. She stumbled backward and had to hold the edge of the drink table for balance. A friend nearby reached to steady her, confused. I didn't move. She stared at me like she was looking at a ghost. Her eyes filled with tears almost instantly, not the kind that build slowly, but the kind that rush in when the past hits like a freight train. I thought you were gone, she whispered. I tilted my head slightly, keeping my voice low and steady. You told me to disappear. She took a step forward, trembling. I didn't mean it like that. I was angry. I was selfish. I said nothing. Mark, she breathed, wiping her face quickly. You look so different. I mean, God, it's really you. I nodded. It is. She searched my face for something, recognition, softness, maybe the old version of me she thought would still be waiting under the surface. But that man no longer lived in me. I tried to find you, she lied. I raised an eyebrow, slightly. You never called. Her face crumbled. I didn't think you'd ever speak to me again. I thought I ruined everything. And I did. She took another step forward, voice cracking. You have no idea how many nights I lay awake wishing I could take back what I said. How many times I imagined you walking through the door again. But I guess I never thought I'd actually see you. I could have lashed out. Could have listed every night I cried alone. Every birthday, every holiday, every job milestone I celebrated by myself. But I didn't. Because the difference between healing and hurting is silence. I let her keep talking. I was stupid, she whispered. I was cold. I pushed you away when you needed me most. And when you left, I thought you'd come crawling back like everyone else I've pushed away before. But you never did. And I realized I didn't just lose a husband. I lost the best person who ever believed in me. She was sobbing now, full tears, messy, real. The way people cry when they know forgiveness isn't guaranteed. I've changed, Mark. I swear I have. I'm not the same woman you left. And for the first time in years, I believed her. She wasn't the same. She was weaker. Because now, she finally understood the weight of words. Now, she knew that telling someone to disappear is like burning a bridge and hoping they swim back. I don't hate you, Lauren, I said gently. She looked up with wide, hopeful eyes. Then, is there still a chance? I paused, then said something I had carried in my chest for 5 long, quiet, disciplined years. I'm not the one who disappeared. You are. You just didn't notice until I stopped waiting. Her lips quivered. But I still love you. I gave her a sad smile. Then love will have to be enough for you. And I walked away. Not out of pride. Not to hurt her. But because when you finally learn to value yourself, you no longer beg to be valued by anyone else. Behind me, she stood frozen. Lost. Not because she didn't know who I was anymore. But because she did. And now, she could never reach him again.